Okay, this is my first video for my new combined lectures 1 and 2 slide set. I think by consolidating the slide set, it'll help out all my nutrition students in terms of some topics at the beginning of the class that just were languishing and I couldn't get out of the first 2 lectures, it seemed. That's an actual photo of my cat. So, I mean, a lot of reasons why people take this class, primarily for nursing or kinesiology or physical therapy or whatever, but you know, when you look at most of the major killers that kill humans since the history of the planet, and people have been dying from heart disease since the Pharaoh days. If you go to the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose, it's a great Egyptian museum if you're into kind of antiquities. They even have some mummies there where they put them through a CAT scan and an MRI. And even the great royalty of Egypt had heart disease. So this isn't anything new. But if you look at the major killers of people, heart disease, cancer, strokes, which is basically a blood clot in the brain, heart disease is basically a blood clot in the heart, Alzheimer's, diabetes, dementia, etc., 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 kidney disease, many of these are diet related. Not only diet related, there's a genetic component, but clearly diet related. So it makes sense to take a class like this, at least for your own self-preservation. Forget about your academics. When you talk about what you actually need to consume as a person, you know, people love food for lots of different reasons. First off, you have to be able to afford food. Remember that. If you can't afford it, you can't eat it. This idea of living off high-end salmon and blueberries is great if you have the money to do so. But a lot of things dictate food intake: religion, personal preferences, vegan, non-vegan. Are you a carnivore, keto? So you kind of have to meet all these different criteria, and then you get into things like sustainability. Are you buying only locally? Does food is a certain type of food attractive to you visually, taste-wise? Are you into organic? All those drive your intake, regardless of whether you assume a food is healthy or not. And then when it finally comes down to it, your body doesn't care about food. It cares about what's in food. And what's in the food are nutrients. And nutrients are basically things we can't build. Or we can build them, but we can't build enough of them. And they have certain roles, right? You know a species is eating the right nutrients, chemicals that the thing can't produce itself. If it's reproducing, right, like bacteria, if you put it on a petri dish and it's missing something, it won't grow. So reproducing, expanding, growing, not just in terms of an individual, but a population. That population is successful, so that nutrient provides enough energy for that population to work, which, by the way, allows for more reproduction and greater growth. You can say what you want about rice and bread and flour and sugar and seed oils. We've done pretty well as a species in terms of reproducing, growing our population, and working our tails off to become the dominant species on the planet based on things that many of us consider junk food, right? And then finally, you get to that fourth category, is that optimal health. Maybe the foods that are the staples of our diet are not good for optimal health, but they certainly are pretty good for maintaining a population. So here's kind of another way to break down nutrients. So when you look in, so this is basically the entire semester, right? If you look inside the food supply, we have different kind of nutrients. Some of these are, they're all essential. Some of these come in wide varieties and large amounts, like the macronutrients, macro meaning large, carbohydrates, fat, and proteins. Those happen to be the energy nutrients, fat providing the most energy per gram. Then you get into the ones you may not ever see in food, or you might see in food, the micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. In terms of the color of orange or of a carrot, you actually are visualizing a vitamin. That's beta carotene, a vitamin, plant vitamin A. But for things like minerals, you may have no idea it's in food, right? Unless the food is like naturally salty and you assume there's some sodium in there. So carbohydrates, fat, proteins, those are the macro. The micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. And then water is a macronutrient. It doesn't provide energy, but for some reason we never group it with the macronutrients. I don't know why. Those 6 represent like 6 lectures or 6 chapters in a book. Phytochemicals are kind of like all the other stuff, and they're only really found in plants. Phyto is like being Greek for plant. Phytochemical, plant chemicals. We know you need them for optimal health in terms of preventing chronic diseases like cancer and heart disease. Whether they're essential, I don't know. I think if you're shipping people off to Mars, You're worrying about carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. You have to, or the astronauts or Marsonauts aren't going to make it. If you want them to do well on Mars, like prevent their body from getting cancer due to radiation, you probably have to add phytochemicals to the mix, right? Some sort of plant antioxidants, if you will. And then here's a big breakdown of them. You can read these in my lecture slides with notes. But think of proteins as not just building the body, but maintaining the body, right? So for most adults, you're not building much muscle, but you're maintaining the muscle. And everything else that runs off proteins, antibodies, your organs, enzymes. That's the big thing. Carbohydrates, you do build with them, but they're mostly a fuel. Fat, you absolutely build with it. With fat, it's all your cell membranes, but it's a great fuel. It is the fuel. Vitamins, minerals, those act as coenzymes. Enzymes are proteins that let the body do chemistry. And vitamins and minerals, they do other things as well, but they mostly help enzymes work. Minerals, of course, can be used as construction, bones, and vitamins can do other things like be hormones. For example, vitamin D and vitamin A are both very powerful hormones that help regulate the body. And finally, water, right? We are a water-based organism. All our chemistry occurs in water. We are water-based. And here's just one big summary chart of the nutrients again, and I'll end on this. For this video, I'll end on this. Let me move my head over to here so it looks a little easier to see. If you break down the nutrients by elements, what elements reside in them? The ones which we call organic contain the element carbon. The ones that don't have carbon, like minerals and water, they don't have carbon because they're not carbon, and water is H2O. Those are inorganic. Inorganic things in life never go bad. Water can become contaminated, but it'll be water until the end of the universe. You can burn a piece of steak to oblivion, it still has iron in there. These are the things that are organic. Carbohydrates, fats, lipids, same thing, proteins and vitamins. Because they're organic, they break down. And so we refrigerate them. We protect them from light. We keep them from air. We protect them from water. There's a reason why we've built a food machine of shipping and transportation and storage and boxes and cans and bird's eye frozen vegetables, because we have to worry about the organic nutrients. They do go bad over time. And then the last thing to say is, of the nutrients which are organic, some contain nitrogen, the element nitrogen. Primarily that's protein. And when we get into the proteins chapter, you'll realize in medicine and sports medicine, scientists and doctors don't track protein. They track nitrogen intake. Because whenever you're eating nitrogen, 99% of the time, it's coming in the form of protein.